Hey guys, it's me Christy, and today I have something a little bit different to talk to you guys about. It's not exactly a discussion, but it's more like something I just noticed and I wanted to talk about, and that is authors and aliases, which is like an author writing under who's already pretty much famous, and then they decide to write a book in, let's say, another genre or the same genre, but they use an alias pretending to be another person, just for either for creative purposes, for business purposes, or just because it works well for them. So I discovered that I was reading a book by under an alias when I was reading Uneasy Lies the Head by Jean Plady. So I was opening it up here, and it said here that Plady is one of the preeminent authors of historical fiction for most of the 20th century, and is the pen name of the prolific English author Eleanor Hibbert, also known as Victoria Holt. So I was like, why are all these names being thrown around, you know? It's a bit odd. And then I'm like, I am not a stranger to reading or knowing about a book by an author who's going under an alias, because I've read some before. But this one actually really intrigued me, because I'm like, how come they're mentioning more than one name? So I decided to look her up, and it turns out for the different genres she decided to write, this Jean Plady, who's aka Eleanor Hibbert, she would write under a different pen name per genre. So Jean Plady, she used that for historical fiction, Victoria Holt for gothic romances, Philippa Carr for family sagas, multi-generational family sagas, Eleanor Burford, which is her maiden name. I think she used that for her first couple of books. And then she also wrote under Kathleen Kellow, Anna Percival, and Aliases Tate. So in total, she wrote 191 books in different genres, all selling a lot. She was most popular, I think, for historical fiction. And then after that, after finding out that she had so many pen names for different books that she decided to write, I was like, who else? I mean, we all know J.K. Rowling wrote under, first of all, her name is Joan something Rowling, but because she was writing a children's book based on the point of view of a little boy, I think publishers were like, no, we should what will a woman know about writing in the perspective of a boy? So they made it J.K. Rowling, so as though she was a man, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or something, so we can talk about it. So they made it J.K. Rowling. So after that, she also wrote, we all know that she also did the Robert Galbraith books, and it turns out she was found out as Robert Galbraith because somebody said that their writing styles were the same, and the people who blurbed the book were in her circle of friends. However, her circle of friends said that they didn't know it was her work. And then she also, of course, she wrote under the alias of Kenilworthy Wisp for Quidditch Through the Ages, and Newt Scamander for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So I was just looking up. I ended up finding this Wikipedia page of all the authors who've used pen names or aliases. And then, of course, another reason why people have been using aliases was because of the time period. Let's say women authors. I found out that the Bronte sisters actually went under male pen names in order to get their work published, because there was an extreme bias at the time against women authors, or it's a huge deal. So the three of them published a book, Poems of the Bell Siblings or something like that. They actually just used the first letters of their first names, and then the last letter of their last name, and then they just changed the rest. So Anne Bronte was Acton Bell, Charlotte Bronte was Sarah Bell, something like that. And then Emily Bronte was Ellis Bell. So that was really interesting. And then as I was scrolling through the list, I also found out that C.S. Lewis also published under a pen name. Like when he first came back from the war, which wasn't like, it wasn't, I wouldn't say popular, but I would say more like normal for people to immediately write like a memoir or something, and he wrote Spirits in Bondage under the pen name Clive Hamilton. And then later on, after his wife died, when he decided to publish A Grief Observed, he used the pen name N.W. Clerk instead of using his real name, which, I mean, of course, it came out later. But there, I also found, of course, another one that we all know who's used a pen name is Daniel Handler, aka Lemony Snicket. I don't think that needs any more explanation, but you know. And then we have Agatha Christie, who wrote, we all know her, she wrote famous crime novels, but if you look up the name Mary Westmacott, that's her writing romance. As well as Isaac Asimov. He actually, as we know, he is a science fiction fantasy author, but he also wrote under the pen name Paul French for the Lucky Star series. It was meant for kids, and this series was meant to be books turned into like a television show, but his agent or something was like, you know how back then when you adapt a book into a TV show, it could be kind of crappy, or like a book into a movie. Even now, it's still crappy, some of them. I will not reference any because I don't want to get in trouble, but I want to say a couple. So instead, they were like, just write under the pen name Paul French. And then later, so he did, and it continued up to about 6 books, and then the 7th book was abandoned because he decided to write for nonfiction. But then people already noticing the similarities between him and Paul French, and at some point he incorporated characters from another series into this series to make it like to prove that there was absolutely no doubt that he was the author, Paul French. And then the last but not the least author that I found out who used the pen name is Stephen King. So he decided to, at one point in his career, he had to write 1 book a year, but he decided to get around that by writing under a pen name Richard Bachman. So this series of books are called the Bachman books, and he wanted to increase publication and find out if it was like whether it was talent or luck that brought him like success. But he never got to find out because there was a bookseller who sold a book, and he was who was reading the Richard Bachman books, and then he was like, this person sounds a lot like Stephen King. So then he emailed the publisher, wrote the publisher, because this was back in the 80s, saying like, I see a lot of similarities between Richard Bachman and Stephen King. And then they confirmed it, yeah, that's Stephen King. So then he asked what he was gonna do, and then they said, why don't you write an interview or like a book about, or an essay about how you found out Richard Bachman was Stephen King. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. You know, you have these authors who want to try something different, or like just sort of, it's actually kind of like hide and seek, or like an Easter egg hunt, that you find out, oh my gosh, my favorite author is actually this other person I never thought to pick up because it's a completely different genre or a completely different thing of what you're used to reading. But really, it's sort of the same language, you know? So I'm gonna leave a list of the Wikipedia page that I found out that has the pen names of these authors, so you guys can go check them out. So in case your favorite author, you've read all their books, and it turns out that you find that they wrote books under a pen name, you just go and you just have fun. You look for those books and you read them. You enjoy them. So that's it for this discussion. Oh my gosh, look what I found out type video. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. I will see you guys next time, and let me know down in the comments if you find anything interesting or other authors who've operated under pen names. So bye!